What do you get when you mix Fallout, survival horror, and a dash of schizophrenia? Well, you get the most divisive but creatively interesting DLC in Fallout history.
Begin again in the night. Let's sway again tonight. Your arm on my shoulder.
This isn't going to be your typical retrospective video where I retell the events of the DLC like you're a little baby during nap time. This video is for my real top G's out there, my horror connoisseurs, my dead money aficionados. So now that the sleepy toddlers amongst you have hopefully gone to bed, I have a question for the grown-up Fallout fans in the room. Is Dead Money actually a survival horror DLC? Or do people just regurgitate that point because it sounds cooler than what the DLC actually is? Well, as a former horror indie dev myself, I think I'm pretty qualified to throw my hat into the ring. And like all overgeneralizations, the true answer is a bit more nuanced than a yes or no. So let's start at the very first aspect that makes something a survival horror. The horror.
What kind of establishment are you running here? I can't believe this. Hey! Can you tell me where the pool is? Can you tell me where the gift shop is? Can you tell me where the other guests are? Can you tell me where you are? Oh, hi. I'm Gilbert Godfrey. And I'm wearing a fuzzy pink bathrobe. Come on, let's go solve the mystery.
The Sierra Madre is Fallout's two-father embryo between Hotel California and the Twilight Zone's Tower of Terror. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but between the Spanish colonial revival architecture on all three buildings, holograms that act alike and are referred to as ghosts, also maybe literal ghost people, these parallels certainly start firing off the synaptic connections in my mind. You know, people have really gone to great lengths in discussing the hidden meaning of Hotel California's lyrics. It's kind of like The Shining of the music world, which, by the way, what is it about spooky hotels haunted by ghosts that cause this borderline schizophrenic theory crafting in the average normie? You guys really should try it more often. It's quite fun. But seriously, look at some of these lyrics from Hotel California and tell me they don't remind you of Dead Money. Mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and she said, "We are all just prisoners here of our own device. And in the master's chambers, they gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find passage back to the place I was before." "Relax," said the Night Man. "We are programmed to receive. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." This final line is especially poignant in Dead Money. The Madre is haunted by a whole manner of ghosts. The holograms, echoes of the old world, depictions of once living people repeating the same lines or functions they did in their waking life over and over again until their battery runs dry. The Madre has trapped their image inside its gilded cage. Some stay in one place, welcoming guests into the Madre. Others haunt premises, being bound to certain areas through their emitters, mirroring how ghosts stick to areas of significance in their waking lives, like their old bedroom. Also, come on, I can't be the only one who sees the visual parallels between all three pieces of media, right? The holograms in Dead Money had to have been inspired by the hologram effect on the Tower of Terror ride, and you can't convince me otherwise. They're nearly the exact same color on the ride, and they straight up look more like holograms than ghosts. I always found the aesthetic of 1920s architecture mixed with 90s technology to be so reminiscent of Dead Money. I honestly can't tell you what's significant about these parallels. I'm just pointing out that they're very real, and they keep me up at night. Josh Sawyer, Chris Avalon, I know you may or may not be watching, you handsome devils. Reveal to me the secrets of the Madre. Pretty please. The Sierra Madre is like an abandoned Disneyland resort. unit that had its power left on and running for hundreds of years. The villa is a cheaply constructed themed facade that is meant to mimic village life, much like Main Street USA's imitation of 20s Americana. And the vending machines in Dead Money are a consumerist technology that I don't think would have been out of place in Walt Disney's futurist utopia he wanted to build just before he died. Also, did you know that the Sierra Madre is sort of real? The Sierra Madre's villa was likely inspired by Scotty's castle in Death Valley National Park, which is not very far from Vegas. It's the only Spanish revival villa I know about out there, and like the Sierra Madre, was constructed by a millionaire. For a woman. But in the real world, there wasn't some charismatic and hilariously petty ghoul involved to fuck it all up.
Always asking questions when you should be shooting.
Instead, it was a charismatic and hilariously self-aggrandizing hobo who did this one in. Because greed never changes. But there's something about these highly themed facades that give off this uncanny feeling. Have you ever been to an amusement park when it's completely empty, especially at night? It's weird. And not just in the whole maliminal space thing. It's not weird because it's empty. It's weird, period. But it being empty removes all the distractions that kept you from seeing how weird some of these spaces are. And there's no family of theme parks that give me this feeling more than the Disney parks. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, California Adventure, all of them. Highly themed facades attempting to replicate cultural environments with as much authenticity as you would expect from a slightly more sane Andrew Ryan. And honestly, I get down with it pretty hard. Ever since I was a small child, I've never really cared for the rides at theme parks. I didn't go there to have fun. I went there so I can exist in these fleeting, uncanny fever dream depictions of reality. Buildings that are slightly too small to be real. Streets that are too empty to be normal. Vibes that are too cursed to be this good. You go to Disneyland because you are a middle-aged child attempting to numb yourself from the horrors of this world. I go to Disneyland so I can walk around my fever dream nightmares, IRL. We are not the same.
Has your life taken a turn? Do troubles beset you? If so,
then subscribe.
begin again.
Subscribe.
I promise, I'm not a Disney adult. I always loved the facade and theming of the Tower of Terror as a kid, but I was always too much of a baby bitch burger to get on a drop ride. My biggest regret was not forking over my left nut on the black market so I could get on it before it closed in Cali. I hate roller coasters, man. Or anything with drops, to be honest. Ain't no human meant to be doing all that. Having your guts float around in your stomach from the G-forces. It's unnatural, quite frankly. And if I wanted my guts rearranged, I'd go to prison or go gay. I don't want anything to do with that shit. Although, I have gotten better about it recently. Been trying some more gentler ones. Roller coasters, that is, not... Anyways, I may have lied to you just a little bit. I mentioned earlier how odd and kind of random the parallels between Dead Money, Hotel California, and the Tower of Terror are. But if you wasted 4 years on a useless degree, which seems to be an ever-growing population, then these parallels aren't really that odd. They're all just Gothic horror.
Join us. Let go and leave the world behind at the Sierra.
Wow! A personal invitation from Rod Serling himself. What more can you ask for? Well, maybe a pastrami sandwich, some coleslaw, and a pickle on the side. But we'll have that later on. Anyway, let's go.
The Sierra Madre silhouette is essentially just a modernized Gothic castle. Look at the Tower of Terror, look at Frankenstein's Tower, look at Bloodborne's Clock Tower. They all hearken to Gothic iconography. The Madre is a grand monument to excess and obsession that never fulfilled its promise. In its death, it grew a life of its own, luring all manner of wastelanders into its inviting maw.
The Sierra Madre. Beauty, isn't she? She the one who invited you here? Or maybe you didn't catch her voice on the radio. Woke up confused like some of the others. Least you're still breathing.
Classic Gothic horror thrives on the feeling of being trapped in a place that won't let you go. Just look at Poe's House of Usher, a decaying structure that mirrors the mental and physical decay of its inhabitants. The characters are trapped by their family's curse and the oppressive atmosphere of the house, which refuses to let them or their family line go. Even the companions embody Gothic archetypes. Dog is the monster struggling against his own duality, a kind of Jekyll and Hyde archetype. Dog being his animalistic, beastly nature, and God being his grasp at a higher purpose, embracing his consciousness and the agency it grants him. But he also reminds me of Frankenstein's monster, trying to find his identity in a world that outcasts him. Dean Domino is a decadent remnant of the old world. He shares the same duality of the old world, opulent and grand on the exterior, but harboring a sick disease of corruption and darkness on the inside, one that spreads and corrupts those around him. Christine is the tragic, wounded heroine seeking revenge, a story of love turned to rage. Elijah is the archetypical madman. He is the inverse Icarus. Instead of flying too close to the sun, he demanded the sun come to him. And if he gets his way, the New Vegas literally turns into a horror game.
Years later, when a mysterious blood-red cloud began to roll across the Mojave, then west toward the Republic, no one knew where it had come from. Only that it brought death in its wake. Attempts to find the source of the toxic cloud failed. The Mojave was cut off. Through the cloud, lights were seen from Helios 1. There were stories of ghosts immune to gunfire who struck down anyone they saw with rays of light. The last chapter of the Mojave came when a modified Repcon rocket struck Hoover Dam, releasing a blood-red cloud, killing all stationed there. All attempts to penetrate the cloud and retake the dam failed, and both the NCR and Legion finally turned away from it, citing the place as cursed. Only 2 remained alive in the depths of the cloud at the Sierra Madre, waiting for their new world to begin again.
These decrepit places are like prisons, trapping you physically, but also trapping the fascination and obsession of many of its inhabitants, including you. Just look at the clothes you start the DLC with, a marked jumpsuit like prison clothes, and a slave collar, just like the holograms, just like Sinclair, Vera, Dean, Elijah. You are all prisoners of your own device. Obsession, addiction, greed, fascination. You are all more ghosts than people. The same can be said for the inhabitants of the Madre, the ghost people, over 200 years old. They are what's left of the people who were trapped in the Sierra Madre's villa.
Don't go shouting or attracting attention. Go quiet. The ghost people find you, it's over.
Construction workers, equipped with hermetically sealed suits designed to allow them to operate safely within the toxic cloud that was slowly rising from the ventilation system during the villa's construction. Yet these suits proved useless against the cloud. The workers were still exposed to its sulfur and iron toxins, which also rusted and sealed the clamps on the suits, trapping the workers inside. Dog explains that when he bites into a ghost person, gas hisses out from their flesh. It's been theorized that the ghost people have been in the suits for so long that they may just be skin on bones, no muscle and hardly any flesh. And what's giving them their human shape is the suit itself, filled with gas. This would explain why Dog only is satisfied after devouring 2 of these ghost people. If they had as much meat as a regular person, it would only really take 1 to feed him. Also, it would explain the way the ghost people move in jittery and strained motions. And when you hack off one of their limbs, the hole would be too big to patch, hence they can't reanimate anymore. They're kinda like that one guy from Hellboy, except creepy as shit. Basically a revenant, not truly alive or dead. It's honestly pretty ambiguous how they've remained alive this whole time since the bombs dropped, let alone how they seem to have a pack mentality and hunt any survivors in the villa.
Ghost people don't come into the villa much. West Town and East Town, though, they're thick with the cloud and ghost people, like hunting grounds.
You could try to explain it with ghoulification, but that doesn't explain how they still have the mental faculties to use weapons they find in their environment, like bear traps, gas containers, and makeshift spears. They even seem to have the capacity for worship, and may be responsible for some of the bizarre shrines we can find deeper in the villa. Dean even describes seeing the ghost people wound their victims and drag them into the cloud, never to be seen again. Almost like they're trying to make more ghost people.
They catch you, they drag you into the cloud, and you're not coming back out. After that, having your necktie go off would be mercy. My advice? Stay out of their way. They don't die easy.
Maybe they stuff people into the suits like Freddy Fazbear. You can't explain their immortality with lore, and you honestly shouldn't. I love how it's one of the only things in Fallout that's unexplainable. Who the hell is going to explain it in the game's world? The virgins at the Big MT? There's a reason this mystery wasn't answered in Old World Blues, even if we learned the origins of the suits and the cloud. No one knows what they really are, why they can't die by conventional means, and why they seem to still have some semblance of higher brain function. And that's exactly what makes them unsettling. Throughout the course of the DLC, you only see a fraction of them. Dean tells us that there are hundreds of them in the underground infrastructure and hard-to-reach places of the Madre.
Normally, there's only a few, maybe a pack. There's more out there, a lot more. If they find out someone's trespassing, it'd be shaking a hornet's nest. Don't want to think how many of them could fill these streets.
This is evidenced by how many start appearing after you trigger the gala event. And even once you escape into the hotel, you can hear them breaking down the door. And as you progress through the DLC, they even start breaking in, which is such a cool detail, which I'm sure is inspired by Resident Evil. Also, can we talk about the music real quick? In another Fallout video I made, I talked about the soundscape of the Dunwich building, and how part of the soundscape has, which you guys figured out to be, the song Dream by the Pied Pipers, playing muffled in the background. To my great disappointment, I would later discover this was likely a mod I had forgotten to turn off when recording the footage. But it was so good and fit so well within the horror themes of Fallout that it fooled me into thinking it was vanilla. While now New Vegas actually used the same concept and took it even further. I have always interpreted these distorted violins in Dead Money's soundtrack to be coming from the speakers throughout the villa. I imagine when the Sierra Madre first opened, soothing orchestral music was set up to play in the villa, like it later does for the gala event. These distorted wails that we hear are the speakers, so decayed by the cloud and time that the once beautiful music takes this haunting tone. It straight up sounds like a ghost, because it is a ghost of the old world. Wait a second, I just noticed something. Do you hear what I'm hearing? Dude, that's actually pretty unsettling and kind of sad. I suppose this is as good a time as ever to talk about Vera. Vera from Dead Money was likely inspired by the famous British singer Vera Lynn, which most people nowadays know her from her song We'll Meet Again, which made its rounds on TikTok a while back. Imagine creating and performing this heartfelt cry for hope to the boys marching to their deaths in the midst of the bloody Second World War, only for it to be turned into a Hatsune Miku Gravity Falls edit nearly 100 years later. I don't know how to feel about that, but I know it's not positive.
夏目みくだ
We'll Meet Again became an anthem of hope and resilience for British soldiers fighting abroad. Vera was a symbol of the home they longed to return to, a comforting voice that promised a future where the world would be whole again. Sound familiar? While Lynn's voice offered a promise of reunion, the voice of Vera Keyes became the last message of a world that was already dead. Her broadcast invited people to the Sierra Madre, promising a new beginning at a gala that would never come. It's a subversion of We'll Meet Again, where the promise of a reunion is nothing but a horrid trap. A trap that Vera herself was caught in. My favorite moment in the DLC was going up to the suites and piecing together exactly what happened to Vera. As you enter, you can faintly hear the voice of Vera off in the distance, but for the first time, it's not coming from a radio.
Sinclair? Sinclair, I'm trapped. Please. Oh God, the security systems won't let me out. They're keeping me here.
It sounds like she's in the room with you, but unless she's a ghoul, this isn't possible.
I'm going to die here, amongst the ghosts. I'm still being recorded by the holographic system. Sinclair? Sinclair, where did you go? Why did you leave me here? Why? We all pay for what we've done. I'm so sorry, Sinclair. Sorry,
The holograms recorded her final pleas for help, stole her image, stole her voice, and killed everyone in the suites. The same voice that beckoned the guest into the Sierra Madre was the same voice that ended their stay. I can't imagine how terrifying it must have been to hear the air raid sirens, maybe even the muffled sound of the bombs falling in the far distance, while a woman pleads for you to help her, only for the hologram that stole her tongue to end you. The Sierra Madre was built by Frederick Sinclair to be a safe haven for Vera. He was obsessed with her. I struggle to call it love because we don't know much about their relationship, but it was clear he cared for her deeply, at least on some level. He built the casino's vault to protect her from the bombs and sustain her until help arrived. But when the bombs fell, the emergency protocols for the casino were activated. All main doors in the casino were hermetically sealed. Vera was trapped in the suites, with death wearing her face and voice around every corner. She had no hope for escape. Well, except one way. The hotel was programmed to send out a distress signal when it went into lockdown. That's not what it sent. Instead, it broadcasted the final recorded message of Vera Keyes.
Has your life taken a turn? Do troubles beset you? Has fortune left you behind? If so, the Sierra Madre Casino, in all its glory, is inviting you to begin again.
A beautifully spoken lie, inviting anyone who could hear it to the Sierra Madre. After 200 years, that final invitation is still being accepted, but it was never really an invitation at all. It was a cry for help.
Join us. Let go and leave the world behind at the Sierra Madre grand opening this October. We'll be waiting.
After you trigger the gala event, you can hear something new in the ambience. This repeating low wail. What you're hearing is likely the emergency siren that went off in the villa when the bombs dropped. Whether it was dormant or playing softly this whole time, we don't know, but the gala has brought it back to life. After 200 years, this is what the last cry of the Sierra Madre sounds like. All of the hotel's most critical systems, the gala celebration, the security holograms, the emergency siren, and even the distress signal, were all tied to one power grid. But obviously the grid couldn't handle it. It overloaded, and as a consequence, the security holograms turned on, but they identified the guests as intruders. They were meant to protect these guests, but instead they turned on them, killing everyone in the hotel. In my previous videos on Fallout's horror, a point of contention that I kept having to address was how the licensed radio music often dampened the horror found in these games, which sort of hazed people into thinking that New Vegas especially was always just a silly game with no horror in it. While Dead Money, like the absolute Chad it is, rips the radio straight from your Pip-Boy. So now the only licensed music you hear is diegetic, decayed like the environment it belongs to, so that it's tailored for the exact tone Dead Money wants to portray. You know, the vibe I get hearing the sounds of the Madre reminds me a lot of BioShock, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Both games create their oppressive, otherworldly feel by making the music a physical, decaying part of the world, a ghost of a happier time that beckons you deeper into the ruins. The Sierra Madre is actually pretty similar to Rapture when you think about it. A highly themed, self-sustaining luxury city that has fallen into ruin and horror. Sinclair is basically Andrew Ryan, who in turn is basically Walt Disney. They were all sort of paranoid businessmen who distrusted the government and went off to build their own sanctuaries based on their personal visions of perfection. Both places also have unhinged schizos who fake their death whispering in your ear via radio.
Wipe the slate clean. Make the Mojave like it was meant to be, undisturbed by man. I'll send the cloud, the holograms, bring ruin in my hands until only I stand atop the Helios 1 tower again. I'll scour Hologram with the cloud, rain its walls with spears from the sun, with an army of old-world ghosts behind me, holograms all.
The Circus of Al, you asshole clown, has reincarnated as the infinitely less annoying vending machines of the Madre.
Welcome to the Circus of Value. Come back when you get some money, buddy.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Both places have poor bastards stuck in suits that attack you. And both places are somewhere once beautiful, now left to ruin. One surrounded in blue, the other in red. There are many other parallels to horror media I can point to, like Silent Hill's Fog, Cube, or Saw. But I think it should be pretty clear to most people that the atmosphere, themes, and presentation of Dead Money is squarely centered within horror. No horror-adjacent wishy-washy bullshit. It's just straight-up horror. And another way Dead Money achieves its horror is by leaning into a set of survival mechanics. In that way, it's exactly like BioShock. It kind of has survival horror mechanics, but also not really.
I don't have a good feeling about this. Just follow me.
Horror on its own is one thing. It's a thematic genre. Survival horror, on the other hand, is a genre exclusive to games, and as a consequence, it is defined by its game design. And Dead Money certainly has the hallmarks of survival horror on the surface. You got hard-hitting, creepy-ass stalking enemies that are hard to kill because no matter how many times you put them down, they get back up to stick a spear in your ass. You got oppressive environmental hazards like the cloud and the holograms. And if you're playing in hardcore mode like an absolute Chad, the entire Sierra Madre exterior slowly kills you, adding a time pressure to your escape that has actual stakes because if you're not careful, you can completely screw yourself. The cloud is a great hazard that's significant to the lore and the atmosphere of the area. The radios, not so much. The concept and the atmosphere they create is pretty cool, but the gameplay execution kind of sucks. Yeah, I said it. Sorry, Dead Money stans. I love this DLC too, but the radios are straight ass. Instant kills in horror only work if the thing killing you is scary. Otherwise, it's just frustrating. And if there's one thing horror should never be, it's frustrating. This is the only thing Redditors are allowed to bitch about in this DLC. Dead Money becomes 10 times more enjoyable with a sprint mod. Trust me. Dead Money also incorporates scarcity management by taking away your inventory at the beginning of the DLC. Okay, Redditors, I'm done defending you guys, so if you'd like to maintain any semblance of your fragile ego, scram, get, shoo. Okay, so I don't care what emotional arguments people give for hating that your inventory gets taken away. It's such a sick narrative device in gameplay setup. You awake in this hellhole nearly butt-ass naked, with only your shitty Pip-Boy and ball of lint to your name. This lends itself perfectly to the horror and desperation of your situation. You might have been a big shot in the Mojave with all your fancy gadgets and small armor you stored up your ass, but in the Madre, you're no one. You've begun again. This setup puts you in a complete 180 in terms of your typical Fallout gameplay experience. Dead Money is the Breath of the Wild island moment, where you have to engage with the mechanics of the game from scratch. Most of the people I see complaining about losing their inventory sound like iPad kids when you tell them to get off their damn slave screens and play outside. Listen, I know you're attached to that piece of Robco trash that seconds as your adoptive parent, but haven't you had your fill? How about putting it down for a bit and doing something fresh for a change? I know it's icky and yucky outside, and yeah, the sun may be eclipsed by an ominous red cloud that leaves the distinct taste of sulfur in your mouth, and there may be a bunch of creepy men stalking you in the distance, but come on, live a little. The game compensates the lack of resources you start with by introducing the vending machine tokens and item codes. Finally, in a Fallout game that predates 4's crafting system, you are incentivized to explore every nook and cranny of this rusted hellhole. So many times in Fallout 3 and even the rest of New Vegas, to be honest, I feel like most of my time sorting through all the junk in the map is a giant boring waste of time. But now exploring and finding Sierra Madre chips, or item codes, or even just a damn helmet and a couple of bullets feels impactful. And trying to do that while you have ghost people coming after you can be genuinely intense. I had moments in Dead Money that reminded me of my time playing the Stalker games, scrounging like a rat, barely getting by. You actually have a reason to go after the item stashes left by other survivors, which gives the atmosphere and narrative of all these victims of the Madre some actual weight. The messages you find throughout the Madre of pain and desperation actually mean something when the gameplay is in harmony with the story. This is all well and proper survival horror, besides the damn radios. But there's one little detail about the gameplay I forgot to mention. Imagine this, if you will. At the start of, let's say, a Resident Evil game, instead of only having a shitty pistol that takes 2 to 3 business days to kill one zombo, they gave you an Omega Death Wave Vaporizer 2000. Like, the fuck? Am I a toddler? Do you think I'm a scared little baby that needs a quite frankly busted gun to enjoy survival horror? I want to feel like a rat navigating hell when I play a survival horror game, not a schoolboy skipping a lawn and vaporizing any eldritch horror that comes within diddling range of me. If you give the player a way of nuking all the ghost people in the DLC, they stop being scary.
Send those fuckers into the stratosphere!
I honestly think the devs may have been too scared to fully commit because of all the bitching they would have gotten from their very level-headed and mature player base. If you want to make Dead Money a legit survival horror experience, this is all you need to do. First, enable hardcore mode. You'll be drinking out of a lot of toilets, but that's part of the program here, alright? Set difficulty to very hard. Throw this crutch piece of dog shit in the garbage.
Learn to let go, mate.
And have fun. And I do really recommend playing Dead Money like this, because Dead Money without its scarcity and difficulty is simply toothless when it comes to gameplay experience. The difficulty and scarcity gives you a valid reason to get around the ghost people instead of wasting ammo or health killing them, which in turn makes their presence more intimidating. The difficulty gives you a reason to scrounge and weigh the risks of exploring for supply caches. It gives you a reason to take the DLC slowly, because taking one too many bear traps to the shins could spell your demise. And if you have the perk that negates traps, it'll make that perk feel so much more impactful. The difficulty even gives you a reason to take the story more seriously. Throughout the entire DLC, you keep being told the dangers of the Madre.
Use your team as I use you. Listen to your caller. Watch where you step. You're no use to me dead.
You see the remnants of victims who couldn't handle the horror of the Madre. Victims who let their guard down for a second and face the ultimate consequence. So when Elijah tells you to take things slow, don't rush, be smart, you really feel like he's serious. One wrong step and your ass is reloading a checkpoint. The first time I played Fallout 4, I kept hearing rumors of a place called the Commons, and it started getting me a little excited. Finally, some real horror in this plastic pop slop of a game. Let's fucking go. So eventually, I gathered my supplies, brought a buddy, and braved the commons. And at first, it was pretty good. Signs warning you to stay out, your companions quaking in their wee little boots.
Wait, this is the common. We need to get the hell out of here. Unless you like being killed.
But then, you actually get there. And it's just another behemoth who dies before I'm even at half health. At least he looks kind of cool, I guess. But seriously, the whole setup and execution was failed by how stupidly non-threatening the whole encounter was. And the same would later happen with the glowing sea. And that place was actually sick as hell, but had no actual teeth. No bark, no bite. But once they added survival mode, that changed the whole atmosphere for me. Now that I no longer have Kevlar skin, I can actually die in a game meant to be about a deadly wasteland. Who would have thunk? Now every time some NPC is all like, "Are you sure you want to be going into downtown Boston alone?" I'm like, shit, you're right. I ain't about that life. I'll just become the town pimp or something. I've heard the Commonwealth has a huge market gap for hired hands. Kind of weird for a lawless wasteland. Maybe the Institute installed a large-range libido inhibitor across the Commonwealth to hinder population increase, then initiated Operation Dumpster Baby, which involved planting little synth babies across the Commonwealth for wastelanders to adopt. Wait a second. Can you knock up a synth? Can a synth knock someone up? What would that even look like? Wouldn't that be an easier way to tell if someone is a synth or human without killing them? I feel like in these past few seconds I've put more thought into Fallout 4's story than the entirety of Bethesda, and I can't tell who's the bigger idiot because of that fact. Anyways, what the hell was my point? Oh yeah, the difficulty gave actual weight to the atmosphere, and it's the same in Dead Money. The whole experience, especially in the villa, is oppressive and unrelenting, and that's exactly how a survival horror game should feel. Horror mods for Fallout generally miss the mark for me. They usually fall into typical horror tropes you see outside of Fallout that have no thematic resonance with the series. And honestly, Bethesda's Fallouts make the same mistake as well. I talk about the two styles of horror Fallout uses to great length in this video. But to very quickly summarize my point, Fallout has two types of horror. Haunted house, shit your pants, spooky horror, think of Dunwich, and horror that is organic to the game's world, think Vault 22. And while spooky horror is more immediately impactful, it's also pretty shallow. Why are there eldritch horrors in Fallout 3 and 76? Because it's cool, and that's the only reason that Todd needs. Organic horror, by contrast, has more depth through its thematic resonance and gets you to think about it longer, since it's in harmony with the rest of the world building. Dead Money might be the only instance I can think of where Fallout has successfully combined both types of horror. Dead Money is undoubtedly spooky, and it has some of the most interesting themes in any of the DLCs. The amount of interesting world building and stories Dead Money connects to, like Elijah and the Battle of Helios 1, Elijah's relationship to Veronica, Christine's tragic love story with Veronica, the technology from the Big MT, which has its own host of rabbit holes, Dog and the plight of the super mutants with no master. This lore bread trail takes you all the way to the first game. Even its depiction of the old world is the best I have seen in the whole series, and I can go on and on. Dead Money is this thick web of themes, lore, interesting characters, and the horror found within it all. And it's great. By far my favorite piece of content in the entire Fallout franchise. Thank you for exploring it with me today. If you enjoyed what you saw, the Lamb and I hope you will join us for more explorations of horror and other. Until next time, dear viewer.
You. I know you can hear me. When you die, Korea, I'll be waiting. Your grave's going to look just like this vault when you die.